All right, what's up, guys? I'm John.
I'm Josh.
Chris.
JB.
We're going to talk a little bit about the Gauntlet today, the Gauntlet match. So, Chris is the match director of the Gauntlet, and we are the title sponsor. So, figured we'd sit down, powwow a little bit, and talk about how the match got started, kind of the history of this type of sport, and just ask you some questions, kind of pick your brain about it.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So, we'll start off. We'll take a look at the last Gauntlet match that we ran, and we'll go ahead and play stage 2, which is where we started. So we'll pause it right here. So maybe history of the Gauntlet, that man right there.
Yeah.
John Sherbert.
Yeah. So John Sherbert, former special forces guy. He was a ranger before that, and then went into law enforcement. And so really these sort of matches started in 2014 between John Sherbert and Jason Byerly. And a long time ago, back before Zoo City was a thing, when it was still Carolina Guns and Gear and all that. And they wanted to do something a little different. And this is kind of before, way before tactical games or any other stuff. And so a lot of it was like, stand there and do a bunch of burpees and then go shoot some stuff and then come back and do some jumping jacks and things. Mm-hmm. And they ended up calling it the Battle Rattle, and it took off. And then John was doing a bunch of stuff, or Sherb was doing a bunch of stuff out at TRC, the range complex, and ended up carrying the Battle Rattle over there. And he ran it over there for quite a few years. I'd never shot it actually at that time. I was deploying a lot, doing a lot of that stuff, and I honestly didn't know that match existed. I was doing a bunch of 3-gun, and it wasn't until John went over to Griffin Group, and he started the Rumble. Same sort of format. He just changed the name because it was at a different place. And that's where I started shooting those and winning all of them in Elite, and really fell in love with that sort of side of the shooting sport. A lot of it comes from our background, him being special forces, me being in the Ranger Regiment and the Special Missions Unit, and a lot of it mirrors just kind of what we have to do day to day or on missions. Some of it's harder. We're not carrying like sandbags, but sure. You're still doing a lot of physical stuff. Still have to be able to perform, be very, very accurate in everything that you do. And so doing those, and then Sherb kind of left Griffin Group to go pursue some more teaching at the police academy and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then all these kind of matches shut down. At least is here. There's some other ones, that are kind of popping off in the nation. Things with, the tactical games is what the tactical games is, and things like the Proving Grounds. Yeah. And so I love these matches, and being such a major part of, especially the Rumble, I had a lot of people coming up to me being like, hey, you think Sherb will ever do anything again? We need something in this area like that. Like, we love these matches. And a lot of it is, there's a lot of people that, not in a derogatory sense, but a lot of tactical Timmies that they want to test their gear, they want to test their stuff. They're really not into the competition side of things. Right. But they want to test themselves and their tactical gear and their shooting and all that stuff. Yeah. So we started seeing an overwhelming amount of people kind of asking if something like this was going to come up. And so I went to Jason and Byerly, Zoo City, and I was like, hey man, do you think there's a way that we could do these and bring them here? We don't have the exact acreage that they do kind of out of TRC and sure. Griffin Group, but they still have some amazing facilities. And so kind of sat down with Jason, we kind of looked at it, and we're like, well, for these matches, you don't want to do them every month. They're right. Super physically fit, or super physically demanding. They're hard setup. I have to build the match different than any other match. Yeah. So as we kind of looked at it, we're like, whoa, there's 4 5th Saturdays every year. Let's make it a quarterly thing and put them on that 5th Saturday, which we don't have any sort of match for. Yeah. And kind of went from there, and it became what it is. We ran the first one last November, and overwhelming support and success with it, and then continued it on, and then we kind of approached Coleman's Creek as well with Dan. They're trying to bring in a lot more competition side out of Coleman's Creek. They do a lot of the precision rifle stuff, a lot of the long range. Zoo City brought the first 3-gun there earlier this last year. And so we're like, well, the weekend before, Zoo City is running their their Fall Brawl.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, let's just continue it on. The next 5th Saturday is that end of November, and let's bring a championship match out there in a kind of a whole new facility, whole new kind of game, make it a 2-day event with a lot more stages, be able to bring in a lot more people. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. Yeah.
Definitely cool. Yeah. So you're taking that torch, you're keeping this sport alive. It's very cool.
Yeah. I think I huge supporter of anything in the 2A community. I've shot things like the tactical games before. Not my cup of tea. I love how many people it's got into the competition sports. I mean, you even look at people like Tulsi Gabbard and some of the other ones, and Jacob Hepner. I'm not the type to go out and stand on a range and skier 1,000 meters and then go shoot. It's not my thing, but I love it. But at the same time, there is kind of a demand and a lot of people that want to test themselves, both physically and marksmanship wise.
And the tactical games is cool, like kind of bridging that gap between kind of modern fitness and bringing shooting into it. And I know a lot of the tactical games guys, they love that type of thing, and it makes them look for other events like that, and kind of brings them over to these other more tactical 2-gun type of events.
Big time. Well, and one thing I think that why we're starting to get really noticed is I do not cut the level of shooting down at all.
Right.
And there's not a lot of static shooting. You're very rarely are you going to stand still and shoot unless it's something where it's like some harder rifle, or something like last time we had a rifle spinner. But like, of course you're going to be static.
Sure.
But you're not standing static. You have to be both physically fit, but you have to be really, really accurate and good with your firearms.
Right.
And so that's part of that we do a little bit different. It's a lot more challenging that way.
Yeah, we see a lot of technical shooting in the Gauntlet for sure.
Yeah.
It's really fun, exciting match that's got a good mix of everything in there. So
we have people that come out that are huge into the 3-gun side, and they're some of the top in the nation, but then they come out and challenge themselves in this way, or vice versa. So it's pretty cool to see that. For sure.
I like the physical stuff. Like I don't know why I like to see how
bloody for punishment.
I like to suffer, I guess.
Those 150-pound sandbags, right?
well, they go up to like 300 pounds.
Oh yeah, they're tactical games.
I think it was 250. Yeah, like 250 was the heavy one.
Yeah, that's
Like
that's crazy.
Horton was here yesterday, and he's just a big.
He's
dude.
he's a beast.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
And
bigger out there.
Oh yeah, they're huge. You look at Thor and some of those other guys, and they're absolute monsters. And what I thought was pretty cool is we do have a lot of tactical games guys that are very competitive over there, and they place and they podium, and they've come in and shoot. And I see a lot of them where they struggle with being able to adapt really quick to, like, let's say we're going from pistol to rifle and like unslinging, making ready, shooting, clearing, throwing your rifle on your back, grabbing stuff, moving on, and then shooting that technical, the technical stuff on the move, very hard shots, very fast shooting, kind of getting them out of their comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, the gear manipulation in the Gauntlet type of event is super demanding.
Yeah. Very. You better be able to.
Right.
And again with it too is, how do you set up your kit, right? Like, I'll tell you, in combat and all, all the deployments I've done and stuff, we're not running around throwing rifles over our back and stuff all the time.
Sure.
But at the same time, like were times where, you have to manipulate and like you manipulate your rifle, manipulate your sling, and like, well, what do you have on your back? Is your rifle going to get caught up? Can you even get your rifle off if you have to? Those sort of things. And so you see it where people can't even get the rifles off of themselves to do something because it's getting caught on their kit.
Yeah.
So it's also that kind of kit shakeout a little bit,
Yeah.
like we're not staging our rifle down at a shooting line. You got to carry it with you the whole time.
And it's fun to see, and I've done it myself, just get completely hung up out there. You're thinking about where the targets are and the stage design and all that stuff, and you've done it 1,000 times, but you go to rip your rifle around and it just gets hung up on a mag carrier, and you really think about how to place your kit and how to change things up to make sure that you're getting those smooth transitions. So
Yeah.
it is a good test of kit placement and, doing all those manipulations under, high stress.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and one thing that I think the other thing that really makes the Gauntlet different than any other match, and I mirrored off, I give all the credit to Sherb. We kind of call it he called it Spirit of the Rumble. We call it Spirit of the Gauntlet, but we encourage helping and mentorship the whole time. And I mean, even to the point where I saw dudes that could not get their rifle off their back, somebody walked up and helped them get it off. You're still losing time. Like the guy that, let's say Josh that has worked out his kit, he can get his rifle unslung and he can be shooting. And maybe, the guy next to him that didn't figure that out is maybe his top competitor, but you're losing seconds there. And so for this is, I like the encouragement. I like the ability to, cheer people on and all that, but then help each other out. I saw multiple times where like magazines came out of people's and like guys grabbed their mags and ran behind them and handed it to them. I'm fun at that.
Pointers too, like the
Yeah.
transfer of knowledge, I think is really good. You see people like, somebody might be struggling on something. The last match, Snappy, one of the ROs, was giving advice to John's son, after the stage on, his grip on the pistol, so see a lot of that across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, like with the last one with the rope, there's a lot of people that never climbed the rope, and like when we got up there, everybody's climbing it a couple times and showing people how to do it and stuff.
yeah, we had
So,
a
like,
brief rope class before.
Yeah.
like
It's cool.
Yeah.
So if you never climbed a rope, like, and you don't really know what to do, you're just kind of like pulling up, and you're not going to get up there, But having other people around that have climbed ropes a bunch before, it's great to help everybody out. And
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's that's the intent is like, hey, the top guys and gals are going to be the top guys and gals.
Sure.
They figured it out, but I want those top guys and gals. At one point I was at the bottom, and it took a group of men to surround me and like make me better and teach me lessons that they had learned and vice versa, and it's helped me. And so that's what I want to see that guy this year that really struggles, come back for, let's say the 2026 season and dominate because people share their wealth and their experience with them.
Yeah, it's, iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah,
If you're
absolutely.
around dudes that aren't better than you, you're really not going to grow. So
Yep.
it's a super cool thing about that match.
Or if people don't, and I see it, don't get me wrong, I love the 3-gun community, but it's very kind of like this unless you have your group of guys, and there's not a lot of wealth sharing and stuff. And I'll tell you that's one thing that the Army marksmanship unit guys do, like John and Nate and those dudes, is like they are the top in the nation, but they will be the first ones to pull you aside and help you, and that speaks very highly of their character. But across the board, you don't see that a lot of competitions.
Incredibly competitive. A
Yeah.
lot of guys are doing this for work. That's their job. Is to go to these, competitions and place. They've got sponsorships that are paying them to be there. So it's not necessarily like sabotage by not teaching, but why are you going to give somebody who's competitive a 1-up, and then they're going to take your podium?
Exactly.
So I get it. And that's not what this is about.
No,
This
not
is
at all.
I mean, taking home a trophy is cool, but we're all trying to better ourselves and become a better shooter, manipulate our firearms better, and all that, and just become a better rounded, capable individual. So
Yeah.
And the guy that's struggling, if he doesn't get the pointers, I'm like, hey, maybe you should change the way you sling or whatever. If he doesn't get that pointer, he's probably going to keep doing it the same way, and he's going to keep struggling. Like, so helping someone out, even with like how they set up their gear, it's like, if you move them here a little bit or do this a little bit different, like, you're going to get a little better, and then you're getting better, and then maybe he could teach that to someone else who's getting into it too.
you know, or they're just perfecting a bad idea and they'll never,
I see that a lot.
do something poorly really well. You know.
I know this is my 300-yard hole that I'm going to keep shooting, but I'm not hitting the target. You know, you're probably doing something wrong. Yeah, for sure.
So JB, you were at the. Oh, go ahead.
You know, and I was going to say, you know, it's like, you know, you get a different perspective as match director. You know, me as the RO, but like in your opinion, like, what separates those top tier shooters, like in a match, from everyone else? You know, whether it be like mindset, you know, training. You know, what, in your opinion, what really is the standout stuff that separates those shooters?
I would say, after doing this for so long, I think the mental game is definitely 80% of it. And that can be a couple different things, right? That can just be the way that you come into a stage. And, you know, if you're taking something over from maybe a previous stage that you didn't do very well on, you know, Joe Farewell, who's also a match sponsor, he's an incredible shooter, incredible friend. You know, he always says, hey man, you have 5 minutes to be upset about something. You have 5 minutes, vent, throw some mags around in your car, whatever, and then you have to move on. And especially with like shooting anything, 80% of it is like that mental game and being able to like, one, keep calm under pressure, you know, be able to, if you hit a challenge, is like being able to like stop for a second and overcome it. The other thing too is like putting in the work. You know, it's, I'll take Jacob Horton, for instance, like, you know, the guy, new baby, you know, he's a LEO, you know, he works all the time, and the guy is constantly at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. He's for 10, 20 minutes, he's dry firing in his house. And just putting in that little bit of extra work, you know, even if that's sitting, you know, when I was shooting these leading up to it, you know, I shoot all the time, I practice all the time, but the things I don't practice all the time is like sling manipulation, or, you know, even going from, you know, running with a bipod on my ground, you know, on my rifle, shooting fast stuff. And then how do I deploy my bipod, get into position? And I would spend just a straight week doing nothing but weapon manipulation, making my rifle ready or whatever it was, and getting into different difficult positions. Like, those are the things that really get you to that next level, is actually putting in the stuff that you don't want to do. Everybody wants to go to the range and shoot, or they want to go to the gym and lift. They don't want to sit there and go nonstop, you know, rifle out, mag in, take a shot, put it back, rifle out, mag in. You know, those are the things that not a lot of people want to do.
So it's well beyond that natural skill set.
Yeah.
You know, it's determination. It's these guys want it more than the other guys.
Yeah,
But,
for sure.
You know, I mean, you have to. You got to put in the work. You got to want it more, you know, and those guys they're coming out on top.
Yeah,
As they should.
Yeah, as they should. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
So when you're designing a stage, what do you kind of like set out, you know, like what's your whole process for, you know, like mixing in shooting the physical? Like, how do you approach it for the Gauntlet?
So the Gauntlet's always a buy-in, buy-out. So what I mean by that is, like, about 90+% of the time, you're going to start with the physical thing, and you're going to end with the physical thing. One, it helps us reset the stage for the ROs, right? It's self-reset, because that's the other thing too, is I want to give people the maximum amount of time to shoot with the minimal time to reset to get to the next shooter. Because when you do that, I can have more shooters, we can have longer stages.
The flow going.
Yeah, it keeps the flow going. So there's a buy-in, buy-out, and with it, I do come into every stage and say, okay, I would say for at least 50% of them, I look at what's the physical implement, and then what is that physical implement doing to somebody? So if I'm doing something like a 95-pound dumbbell carry up a hill, I'm going to go right into pistol, because I want your grip strength to be really fatigued, and you have to shoot some harder stuff and challenge yourself instead of being fresh. Or I'm going to smoke you. If it's moving something, if we look at stage 5, or I guess it was stage 1, the long range in this last one, like you ended with long range. So it's like you had to do everything, and now your heart rate, 140 and above, and now you have to get down and you have to shoot out to 400 yards, 3 MOA targets. So there's a lot of thought that kind of goes into what's my physical thing and what do I want to challenge them on. And then the other piece with it is, with the Gauntlet, is I'm trying to give people a ton of shooting. Like I want people to, and as I design it, like I wanted people to at least shoot a mag of everything they were, pistol, rifle for every stage, if not more. Because, we all, if you're spending money to come shoot something, you want to shoot. And we've talked about some of the air matches, but sometimes I don't want to stand at 25 yards and shoot the same piece of paper over and over. I want to do something different. So I try to also design it where I can maximize the amount of shooting. And I can do that if I limit the amount of reset too. So if I have a lot more static still, which that makes it a challenge in itself, because it's harder to go out, set in static still, make sure, even the range fan, there's certain pieces of steel I can't use, because if you double tap them, we don't want to send rounds, into the Kubota place or whatever. So I have to use certain things on certain sides and stuff. And so there's a lot of that stage design as well, which we won't have for Coleman's Creek. So that's going to be nice. But there's a lot of, when I build, it's like, what's kind of my end state with it? Like, what's kind of the big thing I want out of it? So, maybe the, whatever physical thing. But then how can I tax the shooting with that physical thing?
Well, let's jump in and look at that stage that you were just talking about. So this one, I think this was stage 1.
Stage 1.
Stage 1. So I feel like this one was designed to be unfinishable. Is that the case?
That was 100% the case. It was. This was mirrored off a stage that Sherb had done on one of his rumbles, which was a super heavy sandbag, multiple positions, and then with those multiple positions, you're doing really hard shooting. So like, in this stage, I had you in the prone, and you had to shoot strong side freestyle and weak side pistol. And that's something that not a lot of people do, but I think it is something that people should absolutely know how to do. I don't think you have to be a master of it, but you should be able to like shoot your pistol with the left hand, And so it was designed where you had to be accurate. You had to be able to move the weight efficiently. And then, really everything was kind of a buy-in for the long range. The long range is really where people, on the most part, some people really struggled on the prone pistol shooting. But you get to the long range and now you're taxed and you kind of have to shoot that. So it definitely was designed to, I think when we looked at it, it was about 50% of the people timed out.
Yeah, it was about, I think, 5 different shooting positions. And you had to carry the sandbag in a zigzag motion back and forth to every different shooting position. And they were all technical shooting.
All technical shooting and all different.
Finishing up with a 3 MOA target at 400 yards, with the carbine.
With the carbine. Yeah.
A lot of fun. Very cool stage. When we got to that stage, Bobby Wan, the RO over there, buddy of ours, was like, he's like, one dude has finished it in your division so far. And that was our last stage. So we had, however, 15, 20 guys that have already run through, and one guy finished it. And
I know you're like, oh man.
And I'm like, great. Yeah, these are monsters. So it's not going to happen for me. I did squeak past.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. It was fun to go out there and watch you guys. The other thing that was cool with when I came out and watched the majority of you guys shoot that stage is, you guys kind of built a family, and so everybody was kind of cheering each other on. And I think
great.
that helps.
It does.
When you're sucking and like you're like 20 seconds to the finish, and they're like 20 seconds, and like everybody's like, pick that sandbag up and go. While you wait, it does something to you.
Got your homies there, you know, and
Yeah.
you're dying. You know, heart rate on 40, like, you know, I got to that stage and I'm like, there's no way I'm moving that bag in all those positions inside of 4 minutes and doing all that. And these guys are screaming in the background, like, move your ass, you know. I'm like, so I did.
Yeah.
And it worked.
It does. It helps. Yeah. There's something cool about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, I don't design every. I don't want to be that match where like people are frustrated because they're always timing out.
Sure.
But you know, I think there's gonna be at least one stage every gauntlet where that happens. You know, the rifle spinner. Not a lot of people shot a rifle spinner,
Right.
but I was there at one point, and I remember how it was. And then it was like, you know, I started shooting it more, seeing it more in matches. You know, that's why we try to make the video of like how to actually shoot the thing, because that would have been nice when I started a long time ago. And so like what I want to see is like people struggle, you know, the first time they see it, but then they go back and they watch their videos or they watch other stuff and they go, okay, I can tackle this next time for sure.
You know, and you've got other stuff like I think it was stage 3. I think that one was the one with the rope climb.
That was the one with the rope climb. Yep. Yeah, that was John's stage. Yeah.
No, I was.
No, that's right. You were on 5 this time. Yeah.
5. So we'll jump to stage 3 and we'll take a look at that. This one's cool because there was a lot of targets. There was a jungle run, so a lot of shooting, you know, and you get to have that, like, you know, burner stages.
There it is.
Stage. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, the heavy dumbbells.
Yeah, so there was heavy dumbbells, you know, designed to kind of crush the grip. But when you get there, you know, you've got almost like a, you know, 3-gun style stage. You've got, you know, the boards and all of these targets. So you get to mix in a lot of shooting and a lot of fun. You know, it is challenging to get there, but it's a good mix. You know, I've been to some of these matches where it's just challenging and it's just a drain on your body physically the entire time.
Yeah.
You know? And those are fun because, you know, it's a challenge and you complete it and you've got this kind of, you know, whatever self-worth of getting it done. But this, you have fun, you're with your buddies. Yes, it's challenging, but you still get to burn some ammo. Which is the fun part of being at the range most of the time.
Exactly. And it's not easy shooting either.
No.
You know, there was a lot of no shoots. We had a huge array of steel. You know, we had a turner, which got a lot of people, you know, I saw people, because the turner was kind of at the end. And so if they had a lot of misses, I saw multiple times where dudes would actually hit the activator and then they'd run out of ammo.
Right.
And you only get 2 faces on that thing. And so, you know, I'm trying to put in things that you would see at any sort of 2-gun, 3-gun competition, and still make it fast and challenging, but not just standing and shooting at one spot too.
And they put in a lot of that Jason Byerly. It's difficult, you know.
We got to get to the corners.
Fun, man. Yeah.
Well, and I like it too where I want some of the stages where you actually have to have a plan. You have to have a stage plan.
Right.
Like the easy thing is getting the physical thing from point A to point B. I want the mental side of it to be, you know, did you have a good stage plan? Did you have a good stage walkthrough? Are you getting to your corners and seeing those hidden targets, and challenging in that sense too? You know, making it something a little like your stage had a lot of. There were 3 static still that you could shoot from anywhere, but there were some places that if you ran by it, you weren't gonna, you missed them.
And on that, you know, on the rifle portion of stage 5, you know, like economy of movement, like really came into play in the angles. You know, like from my perspective, you know, I'd see the people, you know, they did their stage walk. And it's all the time you see it. You know, you'll make a plan, but soon as that timer goes off, it goes out. But you know, really economy of movement during your stage plan, you could see where like the higher performing shooters, you know, like they weren't having to like back up and like get a target they had missed, you know, or like doing unnecessary movement. Those were the guys that's times, you know, showed.
So.
And I always watch those guys, like the really high level shooters. I watch them when they're doing their stage walkthroughs, and like I'll do mine, and then I'll watch them and see like, okay, like he's planning, he's gonna go these, and then he's gonna run over here and do these and these and these, and then I'll do it too, and I'm like, yeah, this sounds good. How do you like, what do you recommend for remembering that? Like once the timer goes up and you're like running and now you're out of breath, you're like, you're trying to remember all the targets.
So there's two different things I do. One is I look for my foot placement on the ground.
Okay.
So like especially for a Zoo City or Jason Byerly match, which I build like him, he's taught me how to build, is I am driving to certain points. Like I know as I'm coming in, you know, even if I'm shooting on the move, I have to end in that corner. And that corner is where I'm setting myself up to get the most amount of targets without a lot of movement. So it may be like I'm shooting and I'm driving that corner and then I'm telling myself left to right. And I shoot everything left to right before I'm moving to that next thing. The other thing too is it takes a long time to a lot of shooting, a lot of doing these sort of matches where the stage plan just becomes second nature, you know, where you don't overthink it. I think a lot of times people will overthink or they won't even, they're not counting targets. Like I've gotten to the point in my head now where like if I'm shooting, like I'm like 6 targets, I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like
You count them as you shoot.
I count them as I shoot. But I've also been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
So it takes time. But a lot of it is where am I driving to? Where am I setting myself up for the I guess the biggest place to be successful for the amount of shots I need to take.
Yeah. So I do that when we go out to those, you know, when you and I shoot those Zoo City matches, you know, like Josh said, before I go walk through, I'll wait for you to walk through and then kind of watch what you're doing, you know, and it works. It helps. Although when I try to follow your footsteps, so you're here for one step and you continue moving and you'll shoot 5 targets over there and I can't get 10 rounds out as fast as you can in that same window. So like, you know, I have to tailor that for my shooting capability, you know. But
That's another thing I see a lot of times is newer or let's say kind of mid-level pack shooters. A lot of times they try to mirror the top guys. They try to mirror them with speed or they try to mirror how they're doing it.
Right. I do.
So like I'm a very, very good pistol shooter. So like, let's say it's a 3-gun. I would rather take a bunch more with pistol than shotgun.
Sure.
But a lot of people aren't very good pistol shooters. Well, shotgun, you know, you have a higher probability of hitting the target. So they're going to grab the shotgun, but they also have to load it. So it's slowing them down. Yeah. And so what I see is like people will try to match what I'm doing. Like, oh, he's shooting that whole array with pistol. I'm going to shoot the whole array with pistol. But they're not very good. So now they're doing a flat-footed reload and they're doing all that stuff. So the other thing I tell people is like, shoot to your strengths.
Yeah.
You know, at some point you're going to get there, but shoot to your strength. If your strength is, you know, the Gauntlet's a little bit different because, you know, I try to do it where there's not a lot of options just to keep it a little bit safer in how we do things. But, you know, any sort of competition shooting is like shoot to your strength, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, rifle, pistol, or whatnot.
A lot of times I'll drive, I've heard you tell your son before, like I'll drive past a target and have to back up and hit it. Like if I'm doing that, do I just need to slow down?
Just slow down.
Think about where I'm going before I get there kind of thing.
Well, that's a big part of it. And, you know, a lot of people, so like I even tell myself, especially if it's like the first stage of the day or whatever, is like shoot my 80%. Well, my 80% is still going to be very fast. But if I start trying to shoot 90, 95 or 100% is where those mistakes happen. And so like if I shoot at 80%, yes, it feels a little bit slower, but it's not, you know, it's with long range. So Matt Martini, excellent long range shooter, excellent shooter, you know, but he's kind of taught me with like long range, every miss in a makeup shot when I'm shooting long range is most times it's 6 to 7 tenths of a second. And that's just a makeup. And a lot of it is getting into a position and building a good position. A lot of people just get down and they start blasting and they're in a terrible position. And before you know it, like because that terrible position, you had 5 makeup shots, which is now putting you at 3.5, 4 seconds behind somebody who took maybe a second to just get stable and get in a position and get like a good breath hold and take that shot and get a first round hit. So a lot of times too is it's that mental game of like telling yourself to slow down and you want to go fast, but like the slowdown isn't really that much slower.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it really isn't. It's just like in your brain, you're like, I feel like I'm going really slow right
We
now.
did it at the range before. Like, we're like, all right, just blast these targets as fast as you can, and then we'll count hits. And then shoot them purposefully, and we'll count hits, and then we'll take our times. And with the Charlies and Deltas or Mikes or whatever no shoots, it ended up being faster if you took your time and hit A zone than it would if you're just slinging rounds and hitting all over the place.
1000%. Yeah.
Like,
You know, but you can't slow down.
I know.
So that 80 to 90%,
Yeah.
slow down and get your hits, like, nah.
no.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, being at that 100% where you're not getting a good grip and your draw stroke sucks, and you know your transition from target to target isn't good. You know, staying at that 80 to 90% is what you're saying.
Yep.
That it's fast, but it's comfortable.
Fascinating. I mean, even if you have a bad draw, like on that first target, it's like I've gotten to the point now too where I'm like that's a bad grip.
Right. So
I'll take that first shot, and then before I take that second one, I'll like re-grip. But that re-grip, that, you know, that 0.2 of a second
sure.
is exponentially helping me down the road. But it's getting to that point where you can do that. And I see what the Gauntlet is, you know, on stage 2, the tank trap.
Yeah.
So like the shots are, I think the farthest shot is 75 yards. Now they're teeny tiny little IPSC rifle targets, and most people it's center hold, center hit, right? But people were coming up and they were having terrible positions. They were not like actually getting getting set and like really building a good position. And I saw people go to war with some of them just because they just didn't settle. So like, you know, you look at yours, like you had a great position, you know, you were squared up to the tank trap, like great, you know, C grip on the tank trap, and like you did very well. I saw other people come in, you know, it's the only thing touching is the rifle, you know, they're all catty corner, and now they're having 5-6 misses on a piece of steel, and before you know it, you're already 10 seconds behind somebody.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and for that distance, staying on your feet and getting your hand on and, you know, getting steady the way that I did, I thought was good enough. You know, if we were pushing out a little bit further with smaller targets, I probably would have hit a knee, come further down the tank trap, and, you know, so spending the amount of time and getting a steady, you know, rest that you need can be, you know, dependent on what you need to do, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure. So it's like, even with this, the tree, like shooting off the tree, it was funny because I made it so you had to shoot like 3 different positions off the tree, but it really threw people off because they kind of, some of those targets weren't that far away.
No.
But
But they were hidden.
yeah, they were hidden.
There was one spot where
Yeah.
you had to go in between 2 branches.
Yep.
It was the only
It was the only spot you could see it,
Yeah.
and they weren't that far away. But again, if you're not stable and you're not really building a good position, and you're just slapping the gun on the tree or whatever you're doing and starting to pull the trigger, every miss is seconds that add up, you know.
Yep. And it's stress that builds up on top of it, because you've got the 3 targets hidden in the woods, and then you know you need to come down to that spinner, and there's a huge time penalty on the spinner if you don't get it. You still have to bring the implement back, and there's a 4-minute part.
And a 4-minute
Like,
part.
all of that is weighing on your head
yeah.
when you're doing it.
It's that mental game.
And you
You
throw
know,
a couple
like,
mics.
From my perspective, I see it all the time. When somebody starts missing a target, you know, whether it's a hidden target, you see them start to get in their head on it, get frustrated, and like they'll get sloppy and just end up costing themselves more time, you know. And then like you see some guys that, you know, like, you know, Hutch, when you were competing back in the Rumble, you know, prior iterations, like I'd see, you know, you might have that spot that you trip up on something, but just being able to like push through it and keep going, you know, goes volumes, you know, for what your overall time's going to be.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, especially if like you're missing on pistol, you know, it's like I see people and they're missing on, and they start speeding up the cadence. Bam, 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 bam. And it's like, sometimes it's like, take a breath and like go back into your fundamentals, because it all comes in.
That muzzle meter. Doc, you know, that little
Yeah,
swerve.
but I've done that before, like missing the pistol, like miss a couple shots, and then I like put it back, and then I start.
In his first round hit, you're like, okay, maybe I should have done that in the first place.
Refocus,
Instead of trying to
re-engage.
blaze it.
Yep. Yeah.
a lot of those targets feel closer than they actually are. Sometimes that plate rack is
Yeah, that plate
30
rack.
yards, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that plate rack will get you when you're smoked a little bit trying to shoot.
for sure. Yeah. We shot a stage at the TAS. It was a couple weeks before the Gauntlet, or the week before the Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Right? So they had us carrying and you had the same
Oh,
thing
yeah.
at the Gauntlet, but those kettlebells with the balls up top, and they had us run around this building, and it was pretty far, And by the time we got back, there was a pistol burner stage, and I remember watching the footage, and Josh was like, he was going to pull the trigger, and you could tell his fingers.
It just wasn't
Yeah.
weren't working. Like,
Normally blazes through the
yeah,
closed
like
pistol.
what's he doing? And I'm like,
You get that trigger
Yeah.
freeze. Yeah.
I'm like my finger's not working. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super slow on that one, and it wasn't even like it wasn't that far, but I had never done that before, holding on to those little balls and running around. Were they 45, 65s,
Yeah, something like
something like that?
Yeah.
I was holding those, running, I don't know, a couple hundred yards.
They're not bad when you pick them up, but the duration,
Yeah.
holding on to
About
it for that
halfway
long,
around.
yeah. So
And then it just my
Yeah.
hand was just like not squeezing. It was like,
You can't pull the
Yeah.
trigger. Yeah.
that first Gauntlet, Hutch
Yeah.
sent me a message and was like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
So I started dry firing and holding heavy dumbbells, trying to, destroy my grip,
yeah.
and I got better.
It does. It helps
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do, my prep right now is for dusking, and those 95s, I'll put a watch, I'll have a plate rack, and I'll just put a 55-gallon drum in front of me with my watch, on a 30-second timer, and I'll just hold them. And that 30-second timer goes off. I grab the gun, make it ready, and just shoot a plate rack.
Yeah.
And because it changes everything.
Yep.
And so it's like, how can I fight through this, or what is happening when that, what are the things that are starting to fail, grip or whatever? So how do I combat that? Do I need to put more, pressure on? Do I need to get my elbows really locked in? What is it that I need to kind of fix when that happens?
Yeah.
And it does help, for these sort of matches for sure.
And now, what do you recommend for the guys that don't necessarily have a private range with big dumbbells, where they can go straight to live fire? We do that, and it's great, and you can't really bring. So I've private gyms or anything like that. You can't bring
I know you
to
can't
Planet
walk.
Fitness, to dry fire. So what can these guys do that use a public gym and don't have a private range to?
I mean, with a public gym is just try to do these sort of implements where you're fatiguing grip strength,
Yeah.
or you're having to pick up something that is abnormally large or misshapen, whatever it may be. There's this next Gauntlet, there's going to be something that is heavy, and it's going to be very
What is it?
odd, a very odd object thing to pick up.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say, or I have an idea, but I'm not going to say.
Yeah, but a lot of it is also it's things like, how do you pick up a sandbag? How do you pick up between a strongman sandbag that has no handles to a sandbag that has handles? There's a difference. And how do you get up a heavy one onto your shoulders to be able to carry it? So prepping that stuff.
Right.
And then on the other side of it is, anybody can dry fire. And there are some Joe Farrell has by far the best dry fire courses out there. And he actually has, they're sponsored in the match, people, they're going to be on the prize table.
Yeah.
But even just putting in 20 to 30 seconds or 20, 30 minutes at your house, there's, he has, on his website, you can print out targets, and there's another one called Go Fast, Don't Suck or whatever, that have these vinyl kind of stickers that you can buy, these USPSA packages that have every size of target, poppers or whatever. And in my garage, I have them all over the place.
Right.
And then I'm like, well, what am I working on? I'm working on pistols. So I can do some near far or shotgun. I almost have a full plate rack set up. And so dry fire helps a ton as well. And if you can at your house find some way to fatigue grip, even if it's some ammo cans or
gas cans,
cans or something.
If you don't have something heavy at the house.
Yeah, you should be able to find something, but do something that you can kind of fatigue yourself with,
You don't have to have the targets on the wall. I mean, you got outlets, you got doorknobs, all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
It's a target all the same.
Everything is target. How do you do it? And try to change it up every time. Try to move and shoot, try to back up and shoot, try to shoot and do a mag change, like or really, for things like the Gauntlet is like shoot, unload, clear, reholster, pull your rifle out. Those are the things that I see a lot of people struggle with. That's where every time you're doing a transition, you're eating up seconds if you don't practice that stuff for sure. Yeah.
And we did that. We jumped into this, tactical 2-gun style thing a couple of years ago, and sling manipulation. I mean, it got me bad, with kit. I'd done a bunch without kit, but you throw a plate carrier on with a placard and it changes everything.
Yeah.
So we were very intensive, about our sling manipulation training. I mean, we went out to the range multiple times and just worked on that.
We tried a bunch of different things, and like slinging it barrel up, barrel down, and like putting your arm through and stuff like that. We tried all that.
The same thing's not going to work for everybody, but.
Even with that, I found out like, if I'm shooting like a 3-gun style match where I'm not carrying anything heavy and I'm shooting a bunch of pistol and I have to get my rifle ready, the sling up is the fastest way to make your rifle ready. But the problem is when you have that and you're carrying really heavy things, when you're like this, your sling manipulates off your back and it falls down. So like, I remember telling Patrick Court, he was having a ton of trouble a couple years ago when we were shooting like the rumbles. I was like, hey man, like, it's slower to get ready, not a lot slower, but have your barrel down on your right hip and use your pistol to catch it. Like it's almost like a catch. And no matter what you do, your rifle will never come off.
Right.
So there's differences too with shooting, like what kind of match you're doing and how you carry your gear as well, and stuff. Even like we were talking about with, do I carry 2011 compared to like a Palmer based gun for stuff like this? Like I have 2011s. I prefer to just run with a Glock or a SIG for these sort of matches. It's a lot easier to use,
Yeah, get up, mess with the safety a little bit. Yeah.
And they're heavier.
Match. They are heavier. And there's enough weight going on out there.
Yeah, it's the one slapping on your
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna have to try that though with a barrel down, because I usually I'll grab the buttstock, rip it around like that, and I can get in, and then when I drop the mag, I'll chuck it over my shoulder. But like you said, as soon as I bend down to pick something up, it falls down, and now I'm like fighting this thing, or I have to like pick it up and put it back and then re-go for it.
Yeah, I don't even, for these matches, I don't ever run it like that anymore.
Yeah.
I run it on my right. And you get really fast at just being able to like grab, arm comes out, and as soon as that arm comes out, I can reach back, grab my mag, and it's a little bit slower, but I never have to worry about my rifle.
I'm gonna have to start trying that.
Well, once you get those Shaw shoulder pads, they're a little bit thicker. My sling sits in between that shoulder pad and my neck, and it never moves.
I got them because I started running with my carrier. So
yeah. Well, and I mean, even the gear. I mean, being able to all slings are different, and it's taken me years of combat and trying every sling out there, and then even how you set up slings. Like I have pulled a couple people aside and like, hey, you need to relook the way you have your slings too loose no matter what. You have too much excess. Even things like too much excess. I see it a lot of times with the sling is like you'll get it in. If you're shooting pistol, your sling excess will fall into your holster, and then you can't reholster. Or if you're reholstering a live gun, and that's one of the biggest things you teach, like looking into your holster when you're reholstering, is like, and I've seen it where there's something in the way. Somebody will shove their gun in, and when they pull it out, catches on the trigger well, and they fire a round off. So little things like that too, of like what's in the way while you're doing stuff.
Yep. Cool. So, went over stage design, all those sorts of things, but, for a new shooter, not necessarily a new shooter, but somebody new to this type of sport, how do they get into this if they're in the area or even in another area? What do we recommend? Get on practice score and maybe go shoot some other local matches and talk to the guys there and kind of work their way into this. I don't even know if there's these type of matches around the country, how many there are.
There's really not a lot, to be completely honest with you. There's the proving grounds, they kind of travel around, but again, like they're traveling, and so they may be in your area, they may not. Definitely on Practice Score, you just type in the Gauntlet, it's going to be, Zoo City Armory presents the Gauntlet or whatever. And when I created the Instagram for it, I think social media is such a phenomenal tool that we have now, especially for like learning, is like when with the Instagram account or whatever, a lot of it is like being able to showcase shooters, but being able to show like what the match is actually about, and then do things like how-to videos, like, hey, this is how you climb a rope, or this is how you shoot a spinner, and like give them free chicken. Like, hey, this is the thing, or ask questions. I actually get hit up all the time with questions from people like, hey, can I, everything from, hey, this is my ability, what division do you think I should shoot, to can I shoot a suppressor? Can I, all those sort of things. And I try to be just very open and free for people to like reach out and contact. And, my hope is that after, especially this real kind of first year, that we have a really good community behind it, that, probably at some point, opening up a Facebook group where people can go in and ask questions and help one another and do that sort of thing as well. Yeah. I think watching videos, you guys have done an excellent job of putting out videos that have showed the stages, showed what it looks like, that helps a lot for people to go, oh, okay, I see it. Like,
yeah, we get questions all the time. They're like, what is that? And why are you doing it?
Yeah, can we come shoot with you?
Come shoot with you. And a lot of these guys are out of state, it would be cool to see this thing get incredibly popular, which it is. I think the culture's changing, and this is getting, with social media and everything, it's working its way through the country, and I'd like to see this kind of all over the place. Our spot here in North Carolina, with our proximity to Bragg and all that, I think we've got one of the better match locations around the country. But it would be cool to see it start to get more popular everywhere. I know Tactical Games is, they're pushing it out, the Proving Grounds is pushing it out, but
Tech Games travels around the country, and I think maybe that's why it's really popular too, is because it might go to a part of the country that somebody lives, and that's their only chance they get to do something like this, you know?
Yeah. The problem with that is it's the backside infrastructure, and you have to move all the targetry with you and do all that. Tough. And so for them, that's what makes it very easy to put up a piece of paper at 25 yards. You're not bringing out steel and stuff everywhere. Right. And we're very lucky with Jason and Snappy in Zoo City. Is they really are, in my opinion, and I've shot a lot of matches, they are the top match builders in the nation. Oh, for sure. And that's the reason that they build matches like Memorial 3-Gun and some of the others, and they have the infrastructure for it. It's hard to go on the road, and that was kind of my hope with a big championship, is make it very palatable for people to want to travel at least once a year to come shoot, especially at a place like Coleman's Creek, which is kind of one of a kind. Some places in Texas you can kind of get that natural terrain, but not quite like Coleman's Creek. And it'll kind of be neutral for everybody, because like the people that come shoot all the three others throughout the year, you're kind of shooting at Zoo City, kind of shooting, you see the same stages and that sort of stuff. But with a championship, it's kind of neutral ground for everybody, and something that's different. And I know that there's a pretty good amount of shooters across the nation that have showed pretty big interest in the championship, and it'll be very interesting to see who signs up. Jacob Hebner started following the Gauntlet like a week ago, so hey. It would be cool to see some of these tactical game athletes, or the PCSL league people start kind of showing up and doing something a little bit different,
Cool.
For sure. You have a plan on like how many people are going to be able to sign up for the Gauntlet? The championship?
So we're gonna do 8 stages and 8 squads. We're balancing what that's going to look like exactly. So right now we've been doing 12 people to a squad, and it's just a time thing.
Yeah.
Out there, just to be good stewards, good neighbors. They don't really start shooting out at Zoo City till 9. And then I like to be good stewards of people's time on the back end too. Is like, let's be done by 5, get scores up, do awards, get everybody out of there. It's a little bit different with a championship. Like people are traveling and they're staying in hotels. Like we can go a lot longer. Now it's gonna be November, so we're kind of crunched a little bit with time, but it's definitely gonna be 8 squads. It'll be 8 stages, and so we're looking at probably 15 people per squad. Is what we're gonna have to kind of max it out at.
Yeah,
plus
amount of people.
Yeah, it'll be a good amount of people, and it'll be yeah, got it. You're not gonna have the 250 people, but also you can't have a quality match and have that many people as well.
Yeah.
And we're having quite a bit of really awesome sponsors start jumping on board and showing interest, and I think that will help as well as kind of drawn the crowd of like, oh man, like SIG's interested in, like SIG's sponsoring this. Oh, that's cool. Like, what is this thing sort of?
Yeah.
So I think that will be pretty cool as well. But
definitely.
I mean, you guys have been there from ground one, man.
Yep.
Title sponsor. I love it.
I'll be at all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll shoot them all, except for August. Too hot for me.
I'll do
I
that.
know it's gonna be hot, but
Yeah.
we'll just have like an ice bath in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I'll say too is that we didn't really talk a lot about was the ROs. So the one thing I've tried to build or put on there is get really, really very senior shooters that are very competent in the sport to be the ROs, because it's fast. There are a lot of new shooters, but then there's a lot of like weapon manipulation and quick changes between like, I'm done with this target, I'm clearing my rifle, I'm moving on to the next thing. And so, that's why I ask guys like John and Snappy and, guys like Johnny Moffitt and Jen and stuff, they volunteered to come on as staff, is because it keeps a higher level of competition out there, than having just like somebody on a stage do it or whatever, somebody that doesn't understand the sport. Which helps a lot.
Yeah, having experienced ROs it's important.
Yeah, it's very important.
For a match like that.
For flow, for safety, for
Yeah.
many things.
Yeah, it goes. Well, it's funny. I did hear one person was kind of upset that some of my staff podiumed, and I was like, "Hey, tell that person I would love to have them come staff this next match. Hey, you get free match entry, come staff, and then you tell me after which one's harder, shooting the staff match or shooting the real match. Because like the staff is a lot less people, they shoot things a lot quicker. You don't have a lot of people for reset. Like, come on out. Like, there's no difference between the staff. Have a little bit harder time shooting, and the fact that they volunteer their time to do that is pretty awesome. So. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the staff is awesome. I mean, the mechanics of the match, with that sucking a run. So cool.
Yeah,
appreciate all your time, man.
Appreciate it, guys.
Guys, check out Practice Score. Look up the Gauntlet match by Zoo City, and if you're able to travel to North Carolina, make sure you sign up for the championship. It's going to be intense. It's going to be cool. Really excited about it.
Yeah, we'll probably. I think we're going to open the championship probably the very first part of September.
Okay.
We'll open it up. Maybe I got to talk to Jason. Maybe we'll open up before the August match. So we'll open it up in August and do that.
Cool.
And on there too is the rules. That was one thing I wanted to do, is have a very easy to read and negotiate rule set that lays everything out. That people aren't, going like, well, I don't understand. Like, we have very kind of professional rules, and that's on there as well for people to kind of dig through and kind of learn a little bit. So
Filters out a little bit of the gaming too.
Yeah, it does filter out a little bit of the game.
I like the one where like, if you run past the rope and just touch it, that's like a 3-minute penalty, 5-minute penalty, whatever. Like,
300-second penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want people to try, and And we have it built in too, where, hey, somebody gives it, really valiant effort for 30 seconds, like let them go. They're eating a penalty.
Yeah.
But I don't want somebody sitting on a rope for 4 minutes just being like,
Just waiting for it.
I can't do it, let them shoot. They're going to eat the penalty anyways. So
So we will start a series of videos called The Road to the Gauntlet. So, what we're trying to showcase is, our physical training as well as our firearms manipulation and, kind of our journey from just getting into the two-gun sport and getting to a level where we'll podium finish at some of these matches. So, Hutch has helped out quite a bit, and given us pointers and all those things. So we'll be able to kind of show you what those pointers looked like and what we did to help develop our skill set or our endurance, to be able to get to a position to actually podium at some of these matches or in the top 10%. It's an incredibly heavy field. So just completing these stages, if you're in, intermediate or elite or heroic and legendary here at the Gauntlet, those divisions they're incredibly difficult. So, it's going to kind of showcase our journey into getting, top 10 or podium finishing in those divisions. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, make sure you check us out. We'll also post some of these pointer videos on how to climb a rope and how to lift a sandbag, and whether or not we're going to take that sandbag and either just chest it or throw it up over the shoulder. What's more efficient? How far is your movement? All those things. So, keep an eye out for those videos on YouTube. We appreciate you guys' time watching. Thank you, Chris, for coming out here. And
I appreciate
and
you guys.
chatting with us. So,
The one thing I forgot to mention is we have a female only division, and we did that for a reason. Is I want to give these awesome female athletes the ability to go head to head with one another and not fall in the men's field like every other match. Right. Where the only thing they get recognition for is top female, high lady. When they're shooting with a bunch of open shoot, they took 35th place, and I want to give them their own challenge where they can go head to head with one another and not have to battle against a male or whatever. And some of these chicks are absolute studs, and that's one thing is I want people to really encourage more and more female athletes to come out as well.
Quite a few at the last one, right? 8.
We ended up the first one we had 8. Last time we had 8 or 9 sign up, and then we ended up at last minute we lost 4. But I think those 4 will be coming back this next one. So we should at least have 8 or 9 for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's cool to see.
It is really cool to see.
Putting in the work, man.
Same with the junior shooters. Having the 2 junior shooters come out, you don't see that anywhere else. Right. And they were finishing stages. They were doing the stages, and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, my son had a blast, man. He came out and just put in the work.
Yeah, he put in the work, for sure. And Zach's son, and what I thought was cool, one, it's a bonding experience, right?
Yeah.
But it was cool to see these young bucks come out and challenge some people, man.
Yeah.
They weren't last either.
No, they were not last.
Yeah. Axel he wasn't super happy about his position, necessarily in Classic, and I was like, bro, you beat 10, 14 other adults.
Yeah.
You're 15 years old.
Yeah.
You did a hell of a job.
Yeah, you did a heck of a job.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty and that's what I want. I don't want it to be where it becomes one-sided for things, where it's I would actually like to get to a place, it's kind of hard with the locals, but maybe to have a masters division at some point, right. Where you have enough 50 plus people coming out that you can kind of have their own little...
It's got to be 50 plus, man.
Yeah, it has to be 50 plus.
The T Games is 50 plus, and all the dudes that competed in Elite could have been in Masters.
Oh, yeah. I would be in the Masters for the...
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So
Kurt Fennell just hit, 40 something. He first place Elite tactical game. The dude's an absolute unit, man.
The last one, all 3 of the Elite athletes were all
first, second, and third. We're all over 40.
Yeah.
Dang.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It is cool.
Yeah. We have a Masters. We'll make it 50 or 55 plus or something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm good with 40. I got it.
You got to show your AARP card to get in there.
Yeah, AARP card. All right, well, cool guys. Appreciate you guys watching. You know, look out for the next video. So we'll have a pile coming down the line, and you know, if you have any questions, reach out to Chris at the Gauntlet on Instagram, and you know, he's been great with answering any questions you guys got. So
Yeah, absolutely.
cool.